time grief we go. Gotta learn to let it go. Once asleep, now awake, feeling every breath you take.
Welcome to Wake the F Up podcast, hosted by Alix and David Long, where we talk about living consciously and helping people uncover their essential selves so that they can stop sleepwalking through life. Our goal is to create a safe space where our guests can share how they've decided to wake the F up and become mindfulness experts through their own emotional healing journey.
Welcome to Wake the F Up podcast. I'm David Long, typically the co-host, today the host, and this is my daughter, Kate. Kate is 19. She's at the University of Texas, and just thought it would be fun for her to kind of jump in and for us to have a conversation about the stuff we always talk about on this podcast, which is feelings, therapy, and kind of get the perspective of a younger person who's been through a lot of stuff and is dealing with it. And I'm super happy to have her here to join us. Super brave of her to do this. And I just want to say thank you. And let's get started.
Let's do it.
Alix is on spring break with the remainder of our brood. And we were going to try to do a remote thing, but it was getting kind of complicated. So Kate was here on spring break as well. So we decided it'd be kind of fun, maybe if she would be willing to talk with you. So we're going to talk kind of just generally, I think, and see how it turns out. We were supposed to do something specific today, which didn't work out, which is a big part of the whole blending thing in our current life. It's very hard to plan, frankly, anything, and it's a miracle that anything ever works out. But it does work out. So we had initially planned today to talk about, with Alix, about basically living your true self and what it's like to not live your true self and then have the opportunity to live your true self, which for me has been a pretty significant change and dramatic difference that I think Kate is aware of. Mm-hmm. And it really doesn't have anything to do with Kate's mom or Alix or anything. It's really me. Just reached a point in my life where I could no longer continue pretending and needed to explore my own self. And I know Kate probably in the past, and I don't want to speak for her, but probably in the past has also felt like she had to, or maybe still feels it. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out together. If she feels comfortable exploring herself and living her true self, even though, when you're younger or even when you're older, that's a constant process of exploration and mistakes and successes, etc. So first, I'd like to say welcome to my daughter. This is the first time anything like this has happened with Wake the F Up. And also, I've never been in the directorial seat, if you will. Alix has always been the kind of guiding spirit of this podcast, and I have been a support crew, which is cool. I'm very happy to be supportive in this and input whatever that I can, but I've never had the opportunity to kind of guide what we talk about. So with that in mind, Kate, did you have anything specific you wanted to talk about today? Or you just thought it might be kind of fun to be on the dad's podcast?
I thought it would be fun, but I also think it's interesting to talk about what it's like to be the oldest going to college, especially with all the change of moving, things like that. And then also what it's like for you to have somebody out of the nest, basically.
Yeah, so just to give some background, Kate is 19. She goes to University of Texas, Austin. She's in the engineering department. I'm super proud of her. Before that, her mom passed away in 2020. And that was the year of COVID and various other things. So she was home. She was supposed to be in boarding school, but she wasn't. They were doing remote boarding school, which was a disaster. So that away from home didn't happen. And then the next year, they did partial.
My junior year, yeah.
Yeah, partial away. So 6 months.
No, so sophomore year, the first semester completely at home.
Yeah.
The second semester, I went there for a month, and then junior and senior year, I was there. But junior year, there was like a lot of COVID stuff too.
Right.
Like masks.
The point is, she went to boarding school essentially for 2 years before going to college, and now, of course, she's been in college for a year. This is her second semester. So for me, gosh, lots of emotions. Her graduation from high school was extremely emotional for me, very difficult, because it's so many emotions that I think all families probably have when that for milestones, and then add in the the kind of so Kate's mom and I both went to the same boarding school that Kate went to and graduated from. So there was a lot of like alma mater thing, and I hadn't been back to the school in quite some time, and I was super proud of her, and I just was kind of sad and thought that her mom would have really been proud of her and wish she could have been there. So the graduation was really hard for me, and the fact that just my oldest child, and that's like a really big deal because the truth is, for me, like graduate from high school, really, it's like it's where you get a actual physical break in what you think is your influence with your child. So she's in college, and even though we still interact a lot and we're friendly and I'm fatherly, but the truth is, like, she's out there making her own mistakes and finding her own way, and I can't. Not that I ever probably could, but you like to think you can as a parent. You can protect and guide, and those days are kind of over officially on that day. And I'm still here for it, but that was really hard. And I don't know what you thought about graduation, but
I mean, I was kind of just caught up in all the fanfare. It was more after.
Right.
It was more like orientation that I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Like, I did not think I was going to college until I went to orientation.
Right. And it is true that the transition from boarding school to college is less traumatic because you've already been away. You already kind of done the dorm thing. It's not. I remember when we moved her into the dorm at UT, there were a lot of kids and parents there that obviously was the first time that their kid had been away from home. And for us, it was like, yeah, put this here, let's go eat. And we've already kind of been there, done that. And I think Kate kind of felt the same way.
Yeah.
It's just another dorm. But I'm sure the experience is otherwise very different. Is that pretty much the way you felt?
Yeah, I kind of thought, oh, it'll be the same, but vastly, vastly different. And I kind of, over the summer, got used to like living at home and kind of getting used to San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, I kind of just assumed before I went to college, this is just the way it'll be. Like how it was with boarding school, it was kind of like, yeah, I had school life, but like it was a good 50-50. And I've been so wrong about that mentality. Where it's like
50-50.
Where it's like, I feel like 50% of my life's at home, 50% of my life's at school.
Yeah.
And in college, it's like 100% of my life is at school, and then home is like a vacation almost.
Well, that's good. That's what we're shooting for.
It's like I don't live here, but I also have a room.
Right. Well, it's a new house in a new town. You've never lived here as a kid. Yeah. And that's true no matter what, even though we did make the transition at the time. That was going to be true no matter what. It's just a big transition. I remember going home from college and feeling dramatically different. Like the house was different. My room was different. I felt to my core that I no longer lived there and that it was okay, but it wasn't my home anymore. It's a home, but that's just the way it is.
It's not yours.
Right.
But it's honestly like, I thought I'd be a lot more upset about that than I was. I was kind of like, actually, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many moving parts here that you can participate in it in all different ways, right? You can participate, you can watch, you can just do your thing. I mean, that's kind of by design. That's the way we want it.
Yeah.
But we always wanted, and I think this is a big deal to Alix, is to have a place for you to go when you need to go, So I guess we'll be maintaining your room forever. I don't know.
Till y'all sell this house, I guess.
I was thinking until you moved into a house, but we'll see.
If I can buy my own house, it'd be great.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like 25.
Yeah.
That's really optimistic, actually.
So Kate's been through a ton of transitions that I think our viewers would find interesting.
Yeah.
Obviously, she lost her mom. That was huge. Maybe the biggest. That's the biggest thing. I don't mean to understate it or make light of it. But that's been 4 years now, and we've been through a ton of stuff since then. Like I said, high school graduation, starting college. We've had boyfriends.
Yeah.
We've had new friends. Like
Lots of friends.
Yeah, she's had to make all new friends at UT, and I think that's gone really well.
Yeah.
She's also been in therapy now for
Oh, yeah, I gotta talk to you about that.
2 or 3 years.
Yep.
I'm still paying for it, so I assume you're still attending.
Yep.
Yeah. So Kate is, I think, not uncommon with children with therapy. And then this is coming from a person with minimal experience. And I think Alex probably had a lot more input into this because her children she's been facilitating her children in therapy for a long time. But I think teenagers in particular have trouble building trust with a therapist. Although I think your therapist was great. She's super nice.
Yeah, she is.
But I think Kate has had trouble talking to her about hard stuff, which, I mean, I struggle with that as well with my therapist. Also, there's like a pleasing thing you want to do with your therapist. You know, it's kind of like when you see the doctor, you want to go see the doctor, you want to be healthy, right? You want to get your blood test, you want to get your physical exam, and you want all that to be perfect. And you may even like, knowing that you're going to be weighed at the doctor's office, you may like try to thin up a little bit in the weeks before so that when you officially weigh in,
Right.
It's ridiculous, of course. But I think there's some of that goes along with therapy where you want them to think that you're okay. You want them to know that you're dealing and you don't have that many problems. Everything's okay.
Yeah.
So it can be hard to face things that aren't okay, which I think is really what the thing we were going to talk about is like, how did you learn or when did you learn that it's okay that things aren't okay, which is like a basic life tenet, which is something that I never had before. I always felt in our prior lives that everything needed to be okay. And I needed to do everything that I could do to make things okay. And I still feel like that sometimes, but I fight against it and I try to just let things be and like let you be upset, for example. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in the past, I would have not probably rested until you at least appeared okay. And now, if you're not okay, that's okay. And I think that patience comes from therapy for me, and number two, it comes from not being okay.
Right.
Like really not being okay. I was not okay before. When your mom passed away, I was really not okay, and I could no longer fake being okay. So I had to like accept the fact that I was not okay, and I survived, and I learned that it was okay.
Yeah.
And in fact, in trying to make things everything okay, I missed a lot of stuff. Like I missed a lot of Jack stuff. I missed a lot of your mom stuff. I missed a lot of your stuff because I was really busy trying to make things seem okay. And the truth is, we have the same problems as every other family. We have communication issues. We have experimentation issues. We have focus issues. We have all kinds of stuff that's not a big deal, really, retrospectively. But I couldn't handle any of that before. Anything. I would have done anything to, like, make Jack smile, for example.
Yeah.
You know, would have done anything to make sure you were happy in school. You know, or whatever.
Right.
And now, like, if you're not okay, I'm here to listen. I'm here to help. But it's okay if you're not okay, because tomorrow is another day, and we're just super lucky to be alive. And interestingly, I'm more okay now than I've ever been before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I worry less. I stress less. I mean, I still worry. I still stress, but way, way less. particularly for you, like I know that things are going to happen for you exactly the way they're supposed to if we do nothing at all.
Mm.
If we do a little bit something, things may be fantastic, but things are going to be okay no matter what. So that's been a big parenting learning thing. And I've told this before on this podcast that, like, one of the things Jan told me in the very beginning when I first started, because I started therapy. I know we've talked about this before, but not with Kate. I started therapy because I felt like my relationship with my children after Betsy died was rapidly degrading into just me yelling all the time and us all being just unhappy. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And so when I first got a therapist, I talked to Jan a little, I think the second session, I was like, listen, I need help because I do all this stuff and I'm killing myself trying to make my kids happy, but they seem just so unhappy. And she told me two things. She told me, number one, she said, look, you do know your kids' happiness is not your problem. And that absolutely blew my mind. My brain literally exploded when she said that. I was like, what are you talking about? Because to my core, I always felt like that was my primary job.
Yeah.
And so I argued with her a little bit, and she said, well, how's that working out for you? And I was like, well, it's not working. And she said, see, you can't do what you think you're doing. And I thought that I could. And I'm okay that I had that mistake. I mean, I'd rather do that than, drink too much and beat y'all. But I really thought that if I just did something, something, I could make y'all happy. And the truth is that you can't do that really for anybody. You can be happy with someone else, but you can't make them happy. The second thing she told me was, gosh, this killed me when she told me this. She told me that, well, their mom did just die, and for some reason, I mean, I knew that y'all were grieving, but I didn't know what that meant or what it looked like, or that I didn't know. I just thought, selfishly, I guess I was the only one really suffering, and that definitely wasn't the case. And she helped me put that kind of in a perspective that, number one, you guys were grieving hard, and number two, that I wasn't there to make you happy. And once I got on that train, I mean, things almost immediately started getting better. I started feeling better. I know you guys were still struggling, but it seemed to be getting better. Like I could accept that y'all were unhappy better, which was really hard. You'll see when you have children, it's really, really hard to watch your kids be unhappy. It just rips your heart out. And I think we've come light years from where we were back then. Still a long way to go, and still a lot of grief that we have to deal with. But we're doing it, I hope. And therapy is kind of the key to that, I think. So, what do you think about all that? Sorry, I don't mean to say everything, but
I'm sorry. What do you mean? What do I?
well, what were you feeling back then and now? And
I guess I felt like I wanted to be the one who was okay all the time.
Right.
And that didn't really, I did that for a while. That didn't really work out long term.
Right.
Especially,
you felt like you needed to be okay.
Yeah. And like I kind of like did that for like a little bit, and then when I got to boarding school junior year, so it was 2021. Kind of things fell off the bus a little bit. I had a lot of schoolwork. And for me, like, that was one of those things that really brought out all those emotions, because it's like when you're, I would say, like, using your brain and not distracting yourself, you inevitably have to think about those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So I really struggled with that. And I was, like, very fortunate that I was able to get a good support system at school relatively early on, so like, it was not, like, a long-term thing. But, it's one of those things that I still kind of struggle to deal with, because a lot of people, like, I talk to, like, my friends and stuff, they just, like, they're not therapists. They didn't have the experience as I've had, and like, I just keep falling into this trap of thinking, like, I can find somebody else who will understand me better than I understand myself, which is just not how that works. That's something you have to figure out for yourself. And you can, like, have people can, like, be sympathetic, but they aren't ever really going to know. Like, I've talked to my friends, and they're like, I don't know how to respond to you. I don't know how to respond to that. And I'm like, oh, I really needed you to know how to respond to that.
Well, I would say a couple of things to that. Number one, yeah, for sure. And Alex and I struggle with this as well. There's just things that they don't know. Things you felt that they've never felt. And, hopefully it'd be great if they never felt them,
Right.
So I think you told Alex something several weeks ago that you realized in college that you were different and that you were special, and that made you different. And it's true. It does make you different, and it really does make you special.
Yeah.
The second thing you said, I mildly disagree with, and this is just from your experience, and it was my experience as well. And actually, one of these things that this podcast has done is it's opened up the world of loss and grieving and therapy that I had no idea is out there. And actually, it's extremely common. It's extremely common.
It's more like the people, I'm telling you, I don't meet people who have those types of things going on, but so rarely is somebody ready to talk about it.
Yeah.
The way that, college is like the first place where they're able to even attempt to deal with it, and the way most people have dealt with it, their first year of college, their first year of freedom, is a way that I'm like, really, I don't recommend you doing that. So it's like they're so enveloped in their own world that, there's no way that we're going to really connect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is like them just now starting to deal with all of the things.
Yeah.
Obviously not very well, but, they're not going to be able to be there for me or anyone else if this is how they decide to deal with their issues.
Yeah, I mean, again,
that's sort of what I mean.
I think I had no idea that there was somebody like Alex out there. I didn't know that someone would understand me and accept me. It's true. I never in my, if you'd have asked me 4 years ago if there was somebody out there that was going to accept me for me, let me be me, like not make me be a high producer or all the stuff that men feel that they have to be.
Mm-hmm.
I would have told you bullshit that was not ever going to happen. So my point is that there are people out there that can understand you and can accept you. And I think you're doing the right thing. I'm so proud of you, the way you handled this, your
my
boyfriend, and they can edit all this out.
Yeah.
When you decided what you needed and what you wanted, that's huge. I mean, ask me how many times.
I've had that happen a few times with, like, not just with, like, boyfriends, but also with friends who I'm like, I feel like I'm naturally attracted to people who do have some trauma.
Mm-hmm.
They understand you. They get the dark jokes and they play along, and they're not like, I think at least a lot more well-adjusted friends that I have, they're like, oh, why do you do that? Like, why can't you just be okay? And I'm like, that's, you reach a point where that's just not even that's not even an option. I wish I could, but that's kind of, that line was crossed a long time ago. And then I have to explain to them for 2 hours, and I don't mind it, but just like, you explain to them for 2 hours exactly why. Like, no, actually, it bears down on you so hard, you break down. It breaks you down. You don't have a choice. But the people who do understand that, in my experience, are, usually kind of red flag people. Like, they're just kind of toxic, and both to themselves and to others. Mm-hmm. And I had a friend who almost died of alcoholism, and I was like, oh my god, that's crazy. Like, you really need to stop drinking. And he was just like, I like being happy. And I was like, and he just had not a clue in the world how to help himself. And he didn't want to be helped, and I just, I can't be that person.
Yeah.
Nobody can be that person. You have to be that person. So
I think it's a lot to ask.
It's really difficult.
It's a lot to ask of adults, much more or less adolescents, to have good coping strategies.
Yeah, I'm known for that.
I mean, I didn't have any. I had zero good, healthy coping strategies. Luckily, I, for whatever reason, naturally veered away from alcohol and things that would kill me. But certainly didn't have any good coping strategy. In fact, I mean, I would argue that probably my best coping strategy that I got from my dad, which was basically busying yourself.
Yep, I have a lot of friends like that.
Yeah, which can be like you can channel that into a productive career and good grades and all that kind of stuff.
It pushes people away though. And
it does. It does. And it has no sustaining ability.
Yeah. I've had that experience too. I just I'm kind of over being pushed away. Like, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm not going to let you treat me like that, even though it's mainly about you.
Right.
It's not like I don't matter.
Busying yourself is like maybe the healthiest coping strategy, but it's not great.
No.
It's not great. And I still do it sometimes. When I get stressed, I'll putter around the house, fixing shit that kind of needs to be fixed. And again, I'm not dissing that 100% because it does help in the short term. It really does help. Unfortunately, whatever you're stressed about is still with you when I'm done fixing the lights in the kitchen, but while you're fixing the lights in the kitchen, there's a peace to it. And that I did that for years with my hobbies. Your mom used to accuse me of being a serial hobbyist. The truth is that was like the healthiest coping strategy I could have. Constantly busying myself with, shooting competitively, triathlon, the gym thing,
model planes,
airplanes,
actual
model
planes,
airplanes, real planes,
Humvee.
What else did I do that was?
You fixed that V. You did.
Yeah.
Paintball,
yeah.
Airsoft.
Yeah.
Boating.
Yeah.
Hunting.
Yeah. It was a lot. It was a lot. Reloading.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a ton of stuff that I did that was...
the wine thing.
Yeah, for sure. Wine, cheese. I went through a cheese phase. I thought that I was living a full life. That's what I thought I was doing. But really, I was just busying myself to avoid my feelings.
Yeah.
And the truth is, and this is the truth behind, I think, a lot of the friends that you meet that you struggle with, is they're scared. They're super scared. I was scared to death most of my life.
They're so scared that even when you're like, "Are you scared?" They'll be like, "No, I'm great."
Right.
Okay.
It's true. It's true. No, I'm fine. Everything's fine. Really, you look scared. No, I'm not scared. I'm okay. Or my favorite, which I hear all the time, is I'm not scared of anything, which is literally the stupidest thing you could ever say. It's downright unhealthy.
Yeah.
And not true. Okay, so that, I think that's all really good stuff. Maybe we could talk a little bit about how did therapy help you? Was it not helpful? Because this is something we talk on the podcast quite a bit about. We've never talked about adolescent therapy, which has been a total pain in the ass. I'm sure anybody that's watching our show that has children that they think need therapy, finding a therapist that will see pre-adolescence a little bit easier, I think. So like pre-teen.
Yeah, not enough teen therapists out there.
Teen therapists, and I get it. It's got to be hard, right? I mean, think about the difficulty of establishing trust. Sitting for hours with a kid that won't talk to you, right? Won't say a fucking thing. And then the complexities of the hormonal issues, parental issues, sex. I mean, it's a milieu of work that needs to be done, and a lot of therapists just won't do it.
Yeah.
So can you maybe talk a little bit about your experience with therapy?
I would say for me, I definitely was guilty of making everything seem like I was winning all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely did that. Still do that, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I think it helped me in the sense that it's really validating when somebody tells you that you're doing great, even when you kind of know that you're not. You're just showing the highlights. It's good to have somebody consciously explain why you're doing great.
Yeah.
And then when I used to have, and I still do have, that's not true. I have a lot of issues with flying, a lot of anxiety related to that, and being told yeah, you're not going to be able to reason your way into flying. You're just going to have to deal with it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Was kind of helpful. It's I literally just have to cheat myself into thinking it's okay because there is no logical, oh, this is fine. At least for me, the way I see it.
We're talking about commercial flying or just flying?
Any flying. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Flying is fascinating from a lot of different points of view.
Yeah, I think it is too. just terrifying. Always.
Yeah, so, I mean, what about flying terrifies you?
I don't like the idea of dying out of my control.
Right.
Like, when I'm really terrified, when I'm, like, if I'm, like, in a plane and I'm feeling really anxious, which, you know, usually there's always low-level anxiety, but, like, when we had, like, a kind of bad flight one time.
You're talking about going to the Bahamas?
Yeah. We got grounded.
Yeah.
Unexpectedly.
So this is a semi-funny story. Do you mind if I tell the whole story?
Yeah.
So we're flying from New Orleans to the Bahamas to get married, as Alix and I get married.
Met up in Atlanta.
What's that?
Met up in Atlanta.
Yeah, so we met half the crew in Atlanta, and then we took a plane from Atlanta. We're going to the Bahamas. So we take off from Atlanta, and I'm a pilot as well. And we take off, and we hadn't even gotten into cruise flight yet. And
he used a lot of the runway. I remember that.
Yeah, he used the entire runway to take off, which I just thought it was a hot day. I mean, obviously it was full, so I was like, fully loaded, no big deal. We got off right at the end of the runway, and which I thought was weird. I'm interested that you noticed that. Did you notice that, or did you notice?
I did notice that.
Yeah. So we did take the whole run. It was a really long rollout, and that's what that's called, a rollout. And when we were probably 15 or 20,000 feet, he cycled the engines like 4 times, like went completely idle. So you're going, it was and I was like, that's weird. Now, what they will cycle the power when they get into cruise flight to pull it back to save gas and be more efficient. So that you will hear that, which can be kind of off-putting as well, actually. And he was completely cycling the power, and I told Alex, it's like something, it's weird. And I was like, I bet he's not getting full power on one of the engines or both the engines. So what he was trying to do was basically get them full power. Unsuccessful. So we get over the coast in Florida, and
we're literally like just gotten into the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, we're just over the ocean, and he says, we're going to divert
to Jacksonville,
and he made a unbelievably sharp.
I was watching. It was
probably a 50 to 60 degree bank. It was really steep and a descending.
It was kind of clean. It was clean though.
Yeah, it was smooth, but it was a falling from the sky while descending into Jacksonville, and I was like, "Holy shit!" At that point, I don't think I could hear the engines.
They managed to clear the whole runway.
Yeah, I don't think I could hear the engines at all. I was like, I don't think we may have partial or zero power. And the glide ratio on those jets is literally like throwing a brick out the window. It's straight down. Yeah. There's no glide to it at all. Whereas my plane, you can glide a long way. Kate had a full-on like tachycardic, tachypneic, which is breathing fast, panic attack. And Alix like went over to kind of get her to calm down, and she was really, you were inconsolable. It was really scary.
There was no.
Yeah, and I was scared too. And Alix was like, "Look, I've got a Xanax. Do you think it'd be all right if I gave your daughter a Xanax?" I was like, "Fuck it, give it, And that was 3 years ago.
So it was half a Xanax too. It's not.
Yeah, so Kate takes half a Xanax. It helped almost immediately. We line up with the runway. I could see them turn. I could see the runway, and I heard the gear go down. I was like, "Okay, great. We've got the." They wouldn't put the gear down if we didn't have the airport made. And I stopped stressing at that point. Although I was pretty stressed, honestly. I wasn't full.
I was ready to jump out of the plane. That's how I get. That's why I think it's bad.
So we land, and my parents and the whole wedding, half the wedding party is there, and whatnot. So we're milling around the airport, and my family is anxious. Everybody's anxious because this just happened to us. Kate is in. She's so happy, and my mom actually came over to me and said, "Boy, Kate is handling this really well. In fact, she seems just downright happy." I was like, yeah, I mean, she's never had a Xanax before, and her virgin Xanax body was high as a kite. And it was...
I didn't even feel high. I felt just normal. I felt normal,
yeah, that's what Xanax does. It's an anxiolytic. It lyses anxiety.
I literally would not have gone on the next plane if I did not have that.
Yeah.
Nobody could have come. I was like thinking in my head in the plane, I was like, if we land, I'm driving back to Louisiana. Like, I'm not dealing with this. I will rent a car and drive.
So that actually, speaking of things needing to be okay, that was the first time that I had been witness to what Kate had been struggling with for a while, which was intermittent panic and
Yeah.
Anxiety, because she hid it really well and she needed everything to be okay. So she didn't really share that with us at all, that she was having these panics. And now she still has them sometimes in school, right? Last semester, I know you were having some.
I'm getting better at recognizing when I'm getting anxious, so I can kind of do something. Like, I self-medicate with edibles when I'm like, I was explaining this to my friend because he's very well adjusted and he did not understand why you would ever take drugs for anxiety. And I was like, dude, sometimes it's just so inconvenient to be feeling so unconscionably anxious about something that it's just, you can't even deal with it. It's like, right now, I'm not going to be thinking about this, and then when I have a free 3 hours, I will deal accordingly. Like, it's just like I need to calm down in order to reason why it's actually okay.
Yeah, in fact, the only reason to treat anxiety when you're falling from the sky in an airplane is normal.
Yeah.
Like, that's a normal reaction. That's not, no psychologist or psychiatrist would say that is abnormal. What is abnormal
is
is
wanting to jump out of the airplane. That's when
or when you have panic or worry that's beyond the stimulus. So, like, you have a chemistry test that you've known about for months, and you have a panic attack about the chemistry test. That's beyond. It's a chemistry test, right? I mean, the worst thing is
you just kind of lose the scope of things.
Right.
For me, like,
and that's number one, and number two is if that panic locks you up, so where you can't function.
Yeah.
Because you're so worried, and that's really where you start thinking about therapy, treatment, etc.
I've gotten a lot better at recognizing it. For me, it's like, I feel like people, when you cross that line of anxiety, like, you go from it kind of it being normal, I'm just a little stressed out right now, to it being like, it is taking over my whole life. I cannot do anything about it until this blows over. I am going to be an anxiety bomb, and I'm not going to talk to anybody, and I'm just going to be sitting here losing my mind.
Yeah, so your mom suffered from that a lot.
Yeah.
She channeled it into a highly productive career, for sure. And I think that really helped her anxiety, honestly.
Yeah.
Because she just put it in one spot. She
True.
categorized, or how do you say you?
She made it her life's mission to make everything else very chill.
Right.
She literally was like, nothing else matters. Like, nothing else is that serious.
Right. So she compartmentalized her anxiety quite a bit. Now, I'm not going to lie to you that she was successful at that.
She's not.
Yeah, she was generally unsuccessful. And I think that her poor coping skills and strategies and lack of therapy and, frankly, minimal support from me did not help at all. But these are the. This is retrospective scope, man. I didn't know.
It's always easier.
I didn't know anything back then.
Yeah.
Now, retrospectively, it's so obvious, but I was having my own anxiety, and that's where things get really hairy. And in fact, when Alix and I have arguments and we fight, that's when it happens. When my stuff rubs her stuff, that's where we fight. But luckily, we fight, so we work it out.
That's big thing.
And that's a huge difference, and that's a huge skill that, in my mind, all couples should work on. It's really hard. It's harder for me than her. I think she's a little more aware that we need to fight sometimes. For me, I'm like, I really just want to get along, but that's just not realistic. You're not going to get along with everybody all the time, and yourself included,
Understand that.
So let's go back to your therapy. What do you think overall was helpful, or kind of helpful? As I had the same experience as you. One of the things that therapy really helped me with was telling me that I was normal.
Yeah.
Everything you're feeling is normal. That's what she told me. She's like, look, all this grief, all this anxiety, all this worry about your kids, and all that stuff is stone cold normal, because I wasn't sure. I thought that I might be slipping off into really, really abnormal thoughts and abnormal behavioral patterns and feelings. And she was like, nope, all these feelings are normal, even the really weird feelings that are just disturbing. We can talk about them here on this podcast, because this podcast has literally no filter. Suicidal ideation. I thought that was a no-go ever. You know what I mean? Like, if you ever have those thoughts, there's something wrong with you. And she's like, no, it's totally normal. It's totally normal to want to die, because the feelings are so intense and so invasive, I guess, almost. You can't escape. that you start to think that dying would just be a lot less painful. These are the thoughts I had. And one of the things she told me, because those thoughts freaked me out, she was like, that's normal. It's
Yeah, that
normal.
helped.
And so that is one of the, like, I think in my mind, one of the most useful things about, because imagine not having someone tell you that it's normal.
Yeah.
Right. So now you start applying the shitty coping strategies that you had before to these really intense feelings and thoughts, which is pushing them down, pretending they're not there, telling everybody everything's okay, alcohol, drugs. I mean, it just goes on and on. These really bad, hurting yourself, all these bad coping strategies. So thank God, that Jan helped me, and I think Mimi probably helped you some, at least some.
Yeah, I think so.
I see personally a huge difference. And some of it's just your age, but some of it is the shit that we've been through. And I think that
I mean, I think like I really struggled initially in college, like in September-ish.
Yeah.
Because like I just didn't have I had friends, but they weren't like close friends because just not enough time had passed.
Yeah.
And so I really struggled to open up to them. And when I did, it was just like I was talking to people who just had no idea, which was fortunate or unfortunate, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
And then as the months progressed, I kind of realized, first of all, like I did get closer friends that did care about me, and like that I should care about myself more, because I was I really like I'm a romantic, and I really do want to like find somebody, and I realized that like you can't even begin to try to do that without any sort of love for yourself. And so I got to a better point with that, and I think it's just kind of, I had like a really bad test, for example, and I freaked out about I lost it. I was like, how dare I? And it was over like one of the dumbest mistakes I've ever made. Like it wasn't even like I didn't study. It was like I knew what I was doing. I just did not know what I was doing when I was doing it. And I freaked out about it. And then I had this one friend who just, I would say he handles things very well. And he was like, he also failed that test for the same reason. And he was like, yeah, that happened. I was like, yeah, it did. And he's the one who convinced me to go to my TA office hours to look at my exam and like see more exactly what happened, which I never would have done because I'm so terrified of confronting people, and like even beginning to question anyone was really difficult for me. And I saw my test, I contested my grade, I went from having a failing grade to having a C, which was a win. And I was like, oh my God, I really struggled to, I guess I could say, like, demand a space in the world. I always feel like everybody else was better than me, and that I just had to bow down to everyone else. And then after that, I was like, oh my God, like, it's not even that I'm lower than, it's just that I am the only one who can be responsible for myself. I'm the only one who can stand up for myself. Truly, I'm the only one who can be like, no, this is like I am here. Nobody else is going to do that for me, and that's not because they don't like me. It's just because that's not their job. It's my job. And so after like lots of kind of things like that happening, where I just kind of getting in the way clubs and stuff in college works is like nobody's making you go.
Yeah.
You're not even really paying for most of it. Like there is not even a financial obligation to go. It's all you going and like putting yourself out there, and which is something I really struggled with for so long because I just didn't want to impose on anyone. And then I realized like if I did impose on anyone, like whoop, I'm not like that's not life ending for them. They'll get over it. I'll learn. I'll move on.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Okay.
And so those are
You're literally having thoughts that I didn't have till I was in my 40s.
And that's kind of what those are things that I kind of learned, and then I've made like more friends this semester who have just kind of reinforced that like no, it's I don't hate you for demanding a little bit more, for demanding me, for asking. Nobody's gonna dislike you, and if they do, that's kind of their problem for asking a question. And I really struggled with that for so long, but it's just that's not the way the world works. You have to be the one to be accountable and responsible for yourself and for what you want. Nobody's gonna ask you what do you want, and then do that for you.
Talking about the clubs, I had the exact opposite experience in college.
Really?
To show you the difference in the skill set that you have versus what I had. When I had a mountain bike, and I didn't have a car. My parents bought me a mountain bike, which I loved. And somebody told me there was a mountain bike club. And I was like, that might be fun. And I was thinking I didn't have a car, and if I could learn where the trails and stuff were, and maybe a group to ride with, that might be fun. So I went to a meeting of the mountain bike club one evening, and it was me and like, I don't know, 12 other people.
Yeah.
They all knew each other. They didn't acknowledge that I was there. They didn't ask me why I was there. They didn't acknowledge me at all. Now I sat in the back,
You just did yourself.
stayed by myself, and I stayed for like 30 minutes, and they were just kind of bullshitting, talking about rides, but they weren't including me, and I left. And I was crushed. I was like, guess that didn't work out. But it's like you said, I didn't think that I deserved to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
I didn't think that I deserved to have a place.
Yeah.
I obviously never had that thought cross my mind, but it's the way that it was. It's the way I felt.
Yeah.
Which is a really weird phenomenon that you do. So you're awaking now. When you awake in your 40s, you look back at emotional times, and because you weren't feeling, you can't remember how you felt. Like, I can't remember that upset me or not.
Yeah.
It must have upset me, but I was so not feeling. I felt like I couldn't feel. I wouldn't be allowed to feel, that I shouldn't feel. That even though it probably really hurt me, I completely pushed
Moved
it,
on, yeah.
moved on, and stayed alone. I spent a lot of my college alone. I had a handful of loose friends, probably not as good as your friends with you
I've got
already.
a lot better about that, yeah.
And
That's what I was like in high school.
that was the same thing too. I didn't think that I deserved new friends, so I basically hung out with Louisiana school people, which I loved, and they were great. But I really didn't put myself out there at all to meet new people.
I think I was like forced to do that, being somewhere and the only person I knew, I was like, I don't want to know this person anymore. Like, I'm good.
Yeah, but you have the wherewithal to put yourself in that situation. I never felt that. I never did that.
I would not credit just myself. I'm not very fortunate. I made a very good friend very soon after.
Yeah.
Literally, the first person I talked to is now my best friend. Like, first person I talked to at UT, and she has zero fear about talking to new people.
Yeah.
And about being charismatic. No fear. No, it's always after the fact, but nothing in the moment.
Yeah.
And she doesn't even realize it. Like, in the moment, like, she'll say something, I'm like, oh my god, like, what, how'd you, that charisma? And then she's like, oh, I was just clarifying. And I'm like, oh my god, that's not how that sounded at all.
Yeah.
And not that she's like, Kate, we need to do this, whatever, but it's just like, I see how easy it is for her. I'm like, and how, she'll do something that I'm like, for me, if I thought about doing that, I would just think, how about all the consequences? She'll do it, it goes great, and I'm like, wait, like,
yeah.
And then if it doesn't work out, because it doesn't work out all the time, she'll be like, oh well,
moving on.
And I'm like, oh, so like, that is okay,
Yeah.
And so therefore I kind of followed her example and kind of learned from her, learned she's not always super sure about what she wants, but I feel like I'm much more like in tune with myself in the sense of like, I know what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it a lot easier for me. Like, when I do decide to put myself out there, I'm like, no, I do know I want this. Mm-hmm. So therefore it's like, I don't even ever make I tend to not as often make the mistake of like doing something that I don't care about. Yeah. And also I think it helps that there's lots of, everybody I've met is generally very nice and very wants to include you, but you have to believe that there's space for you there.
Yeah. I think that's a basic,
it's really difficult to do.
Basic thing that I can't believe I missed. I'm so glad you're not missing it.
I'm proud and very lucky. I would say like she's definitely made a big impact on just like me on that realization, on having that realization and be like, oh my god, it was literally. But I mean, it's hard to get over. Like, in the moment, you're just so anxious about everything that you can't even make yourself do that.
Yeah.
And just kind of trying again and again and again and again until finally, like, you realize, okay.
Sometimes I think, yeah. I mean, I think it's wonderful that you feel that way and you think that way, and that you're figuring that stuff out now, which is great. I never did any of that. I'm figuring it out now. It makes you seem kind of odd when you're in your 40s figuring it out. But at least I'm not dead. I'm glad to be figuring it out while I'm alive.
I met a lot of people who I thought, the more that I like try to work on myself, but like not in an unhealthy way, I think. Yeah. The more that I meet people and I'm like, oh my god, you're so unhealthy. Like,
Yep. That's a recurring theme. And I think that, with your mom's death, we had all of these emotions kind of forced on us and we had to feel. And it really changed our chemistry, changed the way we think, changed the way we see the world, it changed the way that we interact with people. And sometimes it's nice to talk with my kids to be reminded that it's not just me that has gone through all these life changes, that really it's our whole family. And really the whole point of this podcast is to share some of these truths with people that have not been through what we've been through, because I am 100% that these are universal truths.
Yeah, I agree.
They're universal truths. You can avoid them you can avoid them your whole life. You can. I mean, we know we have family members that 100% avoid.
A lot of people avoid.
But if you don't, there's a universe of really wonderful things out there and wonderful people and really great emotions that in my mind don't just enrich the human experience. They really are the crux. They are the human experience. And people that are fully asleep are not really, and we literally fall asleep because it's just like being asleep. It's not living. You're not alive. And I don't know. Alex and I talk about this, how, that for us, like, holidays are hard: Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthdays, Valentine's Day, etc. September for Alex and the car and Kate. But every other day is unbelievable. Every other day is an unbelievable gift. And we feel it like nothing else. It's a really interesting phenomenon. Whereas it used to be the exact opposite, right? You lived for Christmas break, or you lived for Thanksgiving, or you know what I mean? You suffered through your daily stuff to get to this holiday, and now holidays suck, but every other day is amazing.
I mean, I would say, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to say something that's going to be kind of contradictory considering last Thanksgiving, but I feel like the holidays really, like, they're hard initially, they end up being good. Like, you know, it's not like...
That's right.
It's not like
it's the anticipation that it's going to be hard.
Yeah, and then
it's the beginning really hard, and then it's okay. Yeah, that 100% our anticipation of those anniversaries is way worse than the actual anniversary.
Yeah,
that's something else Jan told me in the very our first Christmas. I was dreading it literally from
December 1st.
I mean, pretty much. No, I was dreading it all summer. I was thinking about what was I going to do for Christmas, and she told me, she goes, "I promise it's going to be bad." She said, "But I promise you, it will not be as bad as you think it was." And it was bad, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. No. The truth is, there's a lot of love in our family, and a lot of we get along pretty well, actually. We give space for everybody, which is great. And we bump heads sometimes, and some things annoy us, and that's, again, going back to like things being okay with things not okay.
Yeah.
And
so I say the holidays really aren't as bad as, like...
No.
I mean, every time it's like, I think that it's getting... And it's like... And now I know it's like, I think it's getting bad, and it's actually fine. And you just have to... And I think the more... Like, for example, like when I'm walking around in Austin and it's like a beautiful day, and I'm otherwise having a really good day, but then it's, kind of a humid day. It's kind of humid. Maybe it's like late afternoon. Just the smells. It just feels like it's Louisiana, and it feels like it's like after school when I was younger, and that's just really upsetting. But then it's, in that moment, I'm more able to recognize it than at Christmas, that it's beautiful, and it's something that I've tried to explain to my friends, which is they don't really understand why you'd want to dwell on those types of feelings, because you just kind of want to move on. You want to move through the suckiness. You don't want to sit in it, and a lot of people don't see how beautiful that sitting in it is. And I think on those types of days where I just, like, for a second, I can just smell, like, how it was, or I can just, in a moment, I'm somewhere else. Even though I know I'm not, I think in the past I would like try to hold on to that, but now it's more like, how crazy is it that I can be in this new phase of my life, but still know about the old phases, still feel that past, you know what I mean? Still feel that past life and
For sure.
know that it was there, see how beautiful that was, and appreciate the fact that I can still feel that sometimes, and appreciate the fact that I don't feel that all the time. You know, that I still have room for new experiences, because otherwise that would suck.
For sure. And in fact, I sometimes think I have similar experience. I'll like have very, very similar experience. And actually, I'll think, wow, this is a really beautiful day. I'm having a good day. But that in and of itself is a huge statement for me. I would have never said that before. I didn't have good days or bad days. I just had days, right? I never actually contemplated, oh, it's a good day, or I feel good today, or I just didn't do it. It was just living the day. Now, if I'm not having a good day, that's okay too, because I'm actually noticing that I'm not having a good day, which is something I never noticed before, even though I had a lot of days probably that were not good. You know what I mean? And vice versa. I'm noticing that, I remember one of our first, maybe our Alex and I's first fight. We had a really big fight, and she was so angry at me, and I actually had all these terrible thoughts of like, oh my god, she's angry at me. I can't let her be angry at me. She doesn't love me. All these thoughts in your head. And she told me, she goes, look, anger is just an emotion. You can't have all the love and all the happiness and all that without some anger and some dissatisfaction and some unhappiness. And she's totally right. I used to think that if you were angry, that meant you would never be happy. So just not going to be angry, right? Going to be happy all the time. And that's just a total lie and not true.
Yeah.
It's not true. And it's true. Like, the next day we talked and it was okay. And I get angry and I tell her I'm angry and we talk about my anger and we fear charted, which drives me batshit. I know she's fear charted you a few times probably, but it actually is effective to figure out why you're angry. And it's always right here. I mean, another aha thing that I learned in therapy is that there's only one thing you can really control, and that's your own reaction.
Yeah.
Everything else, you're almost just a passenger with. You can only really control your reaction, but you can control your reaction, and that's it.
Yeah.
You can choose to be angry, and you can choose to be happy, and you can do all that.
This has been Wake the F Up podcast, hosted by Alix and David Long. Be sure to check out other episodes where our community of experts share tools and ideas to help you wake to the life inside of you. If you enjoyed this episode of Wake the F Up, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Join the Wake community by downloading our app. Just search for The Wake Wellness in the Apple or Android App Store. And follow us on Instagram at The Wake Wellness. Thanks for listening.